We'll start recording and we'll get started.
Done.
Fantastic. Okay, well, welcome everyone. This is our second webinar in your Leadership for Sustainability program. Thank you very much for joining us because I do know it's a really busy time of the year. We're all counting down till holidays and Christmas, so I do appreciate you making the time, and I think we're all going to get heaps out of this webinar this afternoon with Laura. Before I hand it over to Laura, I just wanted to quickly give you guys a rundown on 2017, some of the time frames for you all to sort of keep in mind. So we have your third and final webinar is at the start of February with Les Robinson. So that will be a great webinar as well, all about facilitation and questions you have, and I think we all enjoy Les's insights there. So once we have that webinar, that's technically the end of stage one. So stage one is what we're in now. It's your professional development, and then we move into stage two of the program, which is where you guys start working with each of your regional networks to implement some things, and these things namely doing a strategic plan and then running a best practice environmental education project. So strategic plans for a lot of people are pretty boring. Some people do love planning. I remember that Nick from Wollongong from Red Hill EEC said he loves planning, and I love planning too. But for those of you who really hate planning, don't worry too much, because what A2E New South Wales, we're providing a really short and simple 2-page template, which is for each regional network to do their strategic plans. So we're doing the hard work for you. We're looking at different background information, best practice. We're looking at what other networks currently have in terms of their terms of reference, and we're putting it all into a short, 2-page document that you guys will be able to use and adapt and change as you see fit. But really it's an exercise that we would like each of the networks to do in February, March of next year, just so that everyone has a clear vision in their mind of what the networks are about, and also so that as you reach out to other environmental educators in your area, particularly for the networks who haven't been very active of late, you can use that strategic plan to sort of show people, hey, this is what our network is about, and it's then new people can have a look at it and get a sense of just how fantastic it is for them to join the network, and I suppose what everyone's on about, and also just what the vibe of the network is. So so that will be in February. We'll be providing you with that template, and then in March and April, we will be running a project planning workshop with each of your networks. So myself or someone else from A2E New South Wales, some of those people that you met at the workshop who ran sessions at the workshop, we will come to one of your network meetings and run a project planning workshop to help you nut out how you're going to plan for that best practice environmental ed project that you're going to work on collaboratively, and that will cover things. It will help you to figure out, who you can collaborate with, how you're going to evaluate the project, what the outcomes are going to be. So we're going to be putting a lot of what you've been learning and the things that you already know into practice, so it's a real action learning exercise, and that's really important, because then we, A2E will give those project plans to the New South Wales Environmental Trust, and once they approve everyone's plan, then you have the $1,000 in funding from us to help you to do that. Now, hopefully a lot of you guys will have, you'll obviously have a lot of in-kind resources that you can bring, and maybe even some, you know, dollar resources that you can bring from your organisation. So those projects don't necessarily have to have a budget of only $1,000, but I suppose we're just hoping that that $1,000 helps to kickstart something. And it doesn't have to be a big project, it just has to be a collaborative best practice project. So, so that's going to be in March and April. And then basically you've got until December 2017 to complete that project. And then in January and February 2018, each network will write up a short case study on the project. And that's going to be really important because that's where you guys get to reflect upon what worked and what didn't. And you can share all of those lessons with the other networks around New South Wales and other educators. So we'll be, and we'll be supporting you to write those case studies. We'll be providing you with a template. So that's going to be a really nice exercise as well if you haven't written a case study before. And we'll then be sharing that information across New South Wales, which is just going to be fantastic. And then February is sort of when the project wraps up, and we'll be doing a celebration. We don't know what that is yet, but you know, it's a year away, so we've got plenty of time to plan for that. So that's the rundown for 2017. I hope that that helps. I will email that to all of you guys, and I'm trying to get in contact with all of you, or at least people from the different networks, just to sort of see how you're all going and see how things are going, to sort of set things up so that in February 2017, you know, you can hit the ground running in terms of doing that strategic plan and then planning for your collaborative project. So thank you everyone for listening to that little rundown. I know you're itching to listen to Laura, so I'm going to hand you over to Laura now. Pretty much all of you came to the workshop. If you didn't, this is Laura Hamilton from the Centre for Sustainability Leadership, and I'm really looking forward to her webinar. So thank you, Laura.
Thank you. Thanks, Erica. Really lovely to be back again. I always find webinars a bit interesting because I'm definitely a people person and I love to see your faces. So I'm really glad Erica's staying on screen, so it's not like I'm just talking to myself in this little room at home. Great pleasure to be back with all of you. As I sort of alluded to there, I'm very much about people, and this webinar is designed to be quite interactive. So I've got the chat function up, and I'd love to kind of throw some questions out there throughout the webinar and hear your answers to them, as well as answer kind of any burning questions that you have along the way. So I'll do my best to kind of do it as they go. If there's anything too complicated and needs a lot of explanation, I might even just touch base with you afterwards. But I'd love this session to be as interactive as possible rather than just kind of me talking at you. So let me attempt to share my screen. There we go. So yeah, there we go. So as Erica said, I am the facilitator for the Centre for Sustainability Leadership, and we've just about wrapped up all the programs for this year. So it's been really lovely to kind of take this opportunity for this webinar to reflect on all the lessons from all the projects that we've had this year. We've had some highs and lows and some very common kind of mistakes, and I've kind of woven that into this this presentation as well. I've also just, I guess, spent the last 2 days at an amazing conference called Purpose, which really is about businesses who sort of have a purpose beyond profit. So a lot of social enterprises and things are there, and it really reminded me of something that CSL is really fundamental to all the things that we believe, and that's that leadership is not a position, it's an action. It is very much about how you behave and not what position you're in. And that was really brought home to me over the last couple of days of listening to people who've done extraordinary things. And a lot of them are, really, really young. The guy who started Thank You, which you might know them, they've got some controversial things around having bottled water, but they fund water projects as well as sanitary projects, women's health projects around the world. But he was 19 when he started it with the idea of just, helping people access clean water. And he was really candid, and he just said, when I was 19 and I came up with this idea, I was like, let's start a water project. And the first thing he did was realize that he didn't know how to do that, so he just Googled it. And I loved that he was just so honest about it, that he just, like, I had no idea how to do any of these things, so I just went out and asked, and I just did it and got involved. And I think that is a real demonstration of leadership. It's absolutely not waiting to be promoted to be in a particular position to act and lead. So one of the homework questions that I think you guys got was, how are you currently leading in the roles that you are taking part of? So it could be actually a work thing or a personal thing, but how in your life at the moment are you currently demonstrating leadership? And I'd love it if people could just kind of type a couple of lines in the chat function for this. Sorry. So modeling, always modeling, trying to lead by example. Gentle leadership if given direction. Yeah, modeling is a great way to do it. Influencing my boss from below, so leading up. That's one of a tricky leadership skill, but quite effective if you can do it well. Organizing, matching people to work together, focusing on what people have to offer, strength-based, that's brilliant. Encouraging others to solve problems, implementing small changes in the workplace, sharing what I'm doing. Great. Encouraging others. Holding lots of community engagement activities and encouraging council staff to engage with these. Fantastic. Great. So there seems to be lots of, I guess, leading by example is definitely a common thing. Enabling others to be the best that they can. Oh, great. Supporting internal policy, bringing fresh ideas, organizing fun events. Lena, sharing knowledge, bringing the Tim Tams. That's fantastic. Yeah, so taking the time to really, really celebrate and taking those little moments of kind of wins as well is really important. Volunteering to write grant applications, fabulous. So doing the jobs that people don't necessarily like to do, that's a great form of kind of stepping up and showing leadership. Listening to other staff issues, helping people get the training they need. Super. Mentoring, noticing achievements, empathetic, compassionate, leading by example. So very, very common theme around leading by example and demonstrating and actually doing things rather than just kind of saying or talking about things. So that's great. Very relationship based, lots of emotional intelligence. I'm really happy to see going on in this particular chat box. Fantastic. Yeah, working with units that I don't usually work with, so trying to break down barriers, which is fantastic. Creating recognition opportunities, brilliant. Running and facilitating workshops, team meetings and team celebrations. Yeah, so it sounds like you're all recognizing very much that leadership is an action, and it sounds like you are stepping up to doing things that potentially people don't like doing, or taking on new things that might be challenging to you, and all of those things really, really demonstrate leadership qualities, which is fantastic. So thanks very much for having a bit of a think about that. I think it's a great mental shift to make. That you're not just a leader because you've got the manager title or the CEO title or whatever. That each of us can be a leader in there every day, and that leadership is not just about kind of leading down, it is about leading across, so leading with your peers and also leading up as well, so leading the people that manage you. So thanks very much for that. So the last time we saw each other, we were talking about collaborative leadership. And collaborative leadership is something that we talked about being very much when a community comes together to achieve something and nobody is the leader. You're facilitating a process, and you kind of, there are times when it's really easy to do, and it works best when there's lots of opinions and nobody's actually got the real solution, and you have to come up with that solution together. That it's really great at enabling buy-in for a particular project and coming up with new ideas and solutions, but that it also really takes a lot of time. So what I wanted to hear from you, if you can cast your mind back a couple of weeks to that particular workshop, was what has stuck with you and what have you actually used from that workshop in the last couple of weeks? Was there any particular piece of information or tool or tip or thing that's kind of stuck in your mind and you've thought about it or used it since? Important to listen. Yeah, great listening skills. Yeah, beautiful. Takes more time, but without buy-in, there's no solution. Thinking outside the box and working how separate teams might be able to share resources, sharing ideas. Teamwork makes the dream work. Asking for solutions or input outside our team, the importance of good planning, thinking of a new network for bigger ideas and projects. Oops, I forgot, should have gone back over my notes. Thanks, thank you for being honest. Sharing the spaghetti, yay. So I hope some of you did kind of think back to that lesson of how, we were all so excited to build towers and then completely forgot to look up and see what was going on around you and how you could best share the resources so that you could all achieve something. And that kind of leads into that taking the time to find out what other departments are doing and where the connections might lie. Being open to doing something different, which hasn't been done before. Great, thank you. Those are all fantastic things. Circle of influence. So Jules, you're referring to what's your circle of influence and what's your circle of care, and often your circle of influence is much smaller than your circle of care, so how can you widen that? Drawing on resources and expertise in other areas and sharing resources. Yes, sharing the spaghetti. I hope if you don't remember any of the other things, sharing the spaghetti, I hope that will be a kind of a real visceral reminder kind of going forward in terms of collaborative leadership. Great. So yeah, this is just a reminder in terms of that there are real pros to being collaborative, but there are some cons, and some of them are around time, I would say, is the biggest one. That if you don't have enough time to be collaborative, that can be where real conflict arises and where pressure points start becoming quite visible. One of the people right towards the end of our workshop spoke about that conflict is still going to happen in collaborative leadership, and I'd really like to just kind of emphasize that point again, that the idea is not for everybody to kind of be peacefully getting on and everything going perfectly. If that happens, lucky you, but it rarely happens like that. And that conflict is actually a really good thing. It's just about how you manage that conflict. Conflict means that people do care about things and they have a vision for it, but how do you work with that so that it's constructive rather than destructive? So expect conflict in collaborative situations, but kind of going back to that emotional intelligence piece, it's how you deal with it that determines whether a conflict is a good thing or a bad thing. So yeah, just wanted to remind you of that as well. So today we are touching back on collaboration, but we're kind of taking a different angle on it. And this is my last slide for the workshop that we did, which was really talking about how can people make use of each other's strengths effectively. And today we're going to talk about something called leading collaboratively. So, leading collaboratively. So collaborative leadership is when it works best in a community and a group of people all come together. Nobody is the leader, and you workshop ideas together and come up with a consensus, or at least a way forward. Leading collaboratively is a bit different. So leading collaboratively, I think, works best in organizations rather than necessarily community settings. And it really is where leadership, somebody is wearing a leadership hat, but that leadership hat changes depending on who is got the best skills or the right skill set to be the leader at that particular point in time. Sorry, I'm just trying to work out the chat function here. I'm just having a little technical difficulty. So leading collaboratively is about kind of making sure that the right person is leading at the right time. There's no one person who's the leader overall, but maybe say if you're in an organization and you want to get a particular thing done, maybe there is a group of people who come up with kind of ideas, and then there's another group of people whose job it would be to execute it, another group of people whose job it would be to market it, or kind of get that thing actually done on the ground. So who is leading at what time is about leading collaboratively, and ultimately the whole group is responsible for the leading, but different people lead at different times. At CSL, we've got a model that we like to use for this particular thing. And to explain that model, I'd just like to get you all to kind of cast your mind back to a meeting that maybe didn't go so well, where you were trying to get a project off the ground. And there's often a bunch of different people that are in meeting. There's often somebody who has a really clear idea of what the problem is, and they're often the person who's maybe the one that the problem is most affecting. They're the people on the ground who actually see things happening every single day. They're working in that particular environmental centre, or they are running that particular education activity, and they have a really good tangible idea of where things go well and where things are not going so well. Then you often have some people who've got these great ideas, and they just like throw them in like bombs of brilliance every now and again. You have somebody who just wants to get on with things, like they just don't want to talk about it, they just want to get on with it and do whatever it is that needs to be done, get their hands stuck in, and they don't want to talk anymore about stuff, they just want to do it. You have somebody who likes to make a plan. That's very much me. I'm the planning person, and Erica as well. So this is not the evaluator. This is the person who likes to kind of take the ideas and put all the things around it, all the what's the budget, what's the time frame. If we did it like this, how would it work? If you did it like that, how would it work? Somebody who can turn a really, really abstract thing into a potential way forward. And then you have somebody who knows all the barriers and reasons why, like, this thing shouldn't be done. It's too expensive, it's too hard, it'll take too long, we don't have the budget, etc., etc. Often these people are all in the same room at the same time with equal amount of time to talk. And I don't know about you, but what we've often found is that they start to cancel each other out or talk over each other. So often the people who've got the energy or the ideas or the problems start off first, and they just start batting around ideas and get excited about things, and they just want to get started and get stuck in. And then, like, straight away, the person who knows all the barriers starts throwing in barriers too early, and we lose the people with the energy. Like, they just don't want to know about it quite quickly. They want to get stuck in, and all you guys are doing is talking about ideas, talking about how this can work or can't work. Can we just do something? I'm sick and tired of sitting still and just listening. Straight after that, the person who has a plan, like, this is not going anywhere, and she's not able to actually find or see a way through this because you're just batting away with ideas and barriers, and that person is lost as well. The person who knows the problem is often the person who's on the ground, and they come to these big discussions hoping for a way forward, and the things just get theoretical, and it doesn't get tangible. It's not tangible enough. So the people who know the problems just get fed up really quickly, and they disappear as well. And the two people that are often left are the people who have the ideas and the people who know all the ways that those ideas are not going to work. And they have a go at it for a little while. And ultimately, the ideas person just runs out of energy because they've got great ideas, let me go find somewhere else where they can apply it. And you're just left with the person who knows all the barriers, and nothing gets done. And what we think is that actually the important thing is that we have all of those people, but that we order them in a very particular way, so that all of those people have a chance to speak, and that it can be really constructive, and that they speak in a way that adds to the development of the plan or the proposal or the project, rather than actually kind of taking away from it or cancelling each other out. So you can have all of these people in a room together, but you should have a strategy going in with how long you're going to spend talking about which particular thing, and which thing comes before the next. So we have this model at CSL that we call the IDEA model, so IDEA, and it stands for Imagine, Develop, Evaluate, and Act. IDEA is, it may look quite linear, but as I'm sure you can imagine, none of these things are actually linear, and sometimes they kind of go round and round. They're a very iterative process. But the idea basically says that you start with a problem or a problem statement, and then you imagine all the possible ways that that problem could be solved. And that involves a lot of kind of idea generation and brainstorming. And then after that, you develop a plan or design a plan. And this is where, yeah, all the designers come into effect. Then you evaluate, you look at all the ways that it could, what are the risks, what are the problems, do we have budget for it, all of those things. And then you actually create an action plan. So somebody who is an imaginer or an ideas person, they're the creatives, they're the visionaries, they're the big, courageous thinking people, they're the Martin Luther Kings, the people like that, Leonardo da Vinci, Steve Jobs, those kind of people who really can think quite out there. The develop or the design people, they're really interested in what could that look like, what could we do with that, what are the limitations. I'm very much a design person as well. I really enjoy, I think it's quite a South African thing. Like, one of our sort of country slogans is "Let's make a plan." So you're given a set of circumstances and you just have to make the best of that. And I think from kind of growing up in that cultural context, I really like coming up with plans and solutions and problem solving. Someone who likes problem solving often fits quite well into the designer plan. Someone who's an evaluator is the person who's like, prove it, tell me what the numbers are, tell me what assumptions you're making. They'll look for the faults and the logic, and they'll try to mitigate the risks of a particular project. And they often get a bad name, I think, the evaluators, and they often are the people that are like the killjoys, but we need these people. They're the people who really make projects successful. But when we don't need them is right in the beginning, when we're trying to imagine different ways of doing things. And then finally, it's the action people. It's the MacGyvers of the world. It's the people who just want to get stuff done and get stuck in and do it. And we need those as well. So just for an example, I'm really great, as I said, at the design thing, but I'm not great at seeing things through and doing the action thing. So I need somebody who's quite happy to take my plan and run with it and do it. I get really excited about finding the parameters and ways to solve a problem, less excited about actually like getting it done and seeing it through to the end, whereas as other people just want to get stuck in. So imagine, design or develop, evaluate, and act. Some people are a combination of a number of those things, normally two. I've never met anybody who can do all of those well. Some people have learnt skills to kind of cope, so they might be really, really good at kind of evaluating and acting, but they've had to really practice the imagining and the developing bit. That's maybe not where their skill set is, but they can do it if they have to, but they wouldn't choose to do it if they could get away with it. So as I said, this is not a linear process. It's very much an iterative process. You might start with the imagination piece and start developing it. And once you get to evaluate, you realize actually none of these ideas are good. We need to go straight back to the drawing board and start again, and look at how we can do things differently. So what I want you to do is have a look at your at the poll. And I'd love you to just have a look at which one of those do you identify with most. And when you think of that, I'd love you to also take into account your homework, which was looking at what do people think you do well, what are your strengths, and combine that with what was the thing that you gravitated when I was explaining those 4 things. What was the thing you went, I am definitely an action person. I just want to get stuck in and do things. And I'd love you to just give me an idea of who's in the room. Are we kind of sitting with a whole lot of imaginers, or are there evaluators out there going, I need some proof about this?
So Laura, you just have to open the poll.
Yep.
Fantastic, great, it's up. Thank you.
I'll just give you a second to do that. Ooh, lots of imaginers and designers, lots of designers. Awesome. Lots of designers out there. Beautiful, thanks guys. So there's 4 of you who've identified, oh, there's a few of you can't see the poll. Sorry, Erica, was there an issue with the poll last time that you mentioned? Oh, you're on mute.
Thank you. Some people did have an issue. So we've got,
yeah, I've got a couple.
Yeah, it should just pop up. So maybe if you can't see the poll, maybe try making your screen full. Like actually, you know, choosing the full screen. We need a solutions person. Yes, we need. The poll doesn't work. Yeah, so try and make sure your Zoom screen is filling up the whole screen, and it really should just pop up. Or look at your toolbar and see if there's anything on your toolbar that allows you to do that, but it should just be an automatic pop-up. And yeah, Jules has said maybe enable pop-ups on your browser. Sometimes, guys, if your computer's a little bit, if your browser's a bit out of date or it hasn't been upgraded in a while, then you're not going to have the full capabilities of Zoom. So if it's not working for you, I'm sorry about that. Let's make a note of it, and when you finish this, have a chat to your IT support and see what they can suggest.
Great, thanks, Erica. So I think just based on the numbers there are a few of you who identify with multiple options as part of that, but I'd love to hear from the evaluators. So we've got 4 people who identify as an evaluator. Can you give me an example of kind of the questions you ask on a day-to-day basis, or why you identified as an evaluator? Yeah, so really good at looking at why some programs may or may not work. More of a detailed person. A day-to-day review and evaluator gets standards, professionals, and regulations. I don't like putting in effort if it isn't going to be received well. I'd rather ask the questions first before implementing rather than after it fails. Yeah, really, a lot of you mentioning things like risk, or at least alluding to the risk bit, and you want to make sure that something succeeds rather than yeah, putting in all the effort, as you say, and yeah, reducing the risks of the project so that it doesn't fail. What I'd love you to see is that people are motivated by different things. So the people who are really interested in the imagining or the ideation phase, often they like it for ideation in itself, and they get a kick out of coming up with great ideas. And if the project succeeds, great. If it doesn't, that's okay. The thing that's really exciting about it is coming up with ideas. And I guess the people who are really interested in design, like I just said to you, as soon as I found a way to figure out how a problem could work, like I'm done. I'm kind of happy with that, with where it is in terms of that point. Then the next people, the evaluation people, as I've said, they're really interested in kind of making sure that it can actually succeed and get going. And then obviously the last people just want to get going, get it done. So I hope you can kind of start to see, even though this is very simple and there is many, many layers into each of these, I hope you can see the value of doing this sequentially, or at least going through these steps and coming back to maybe the beginning if you need to. So just in summary, the ideas person, give me a problem, I'll give you big ideas. The D person, the design, give me big ideas, I'll give you great designs. Evaluators, give me great designs, I'll give you clear decisions. And the action person, I'll make it happen, I'll get it done. What we do with our teams at CSL is we basically kind of figure out who is good at what, and we give people different parts of the program based on what it is that they actually are good at. So we have a big chart on our wall. We have a big chart on our wall that kind of looks at, okay, who's the person who loves acting, who's the person who loves designing, and we allocate projects. Based on that. Angus just asked, can you learn to be better in one that may not be your strength? Yes, you absolutely can. I think that's just about learning a particular set of tools or skills, and I'm going to just give you a couple of tools for each of those. Like anything, it just takes practice. So yes, anybody can be any one of these things, but I think that people have preferences towards one or two of them. But that certainly doesn't limit you at all. And I think if you run a small team or a small business, it's a necessity for you to try and get good at a number of these things. Okay, and then I just wanted to quickly give you an idea about timing and resource management as well. So before we kind of dig into each of them, I used to work with a team, so I would say 4 of us were I's or D's, and we were not that strong on the E's, and then one person was like a super action person, and we would spend probably 95% of the meeting throwing ideas on the wall, and then nothing would ever get done because we never left enough time to do any of the other things. So ideas should come fast. You shouldn't spend a lot of time on them. It's really just about pouring as much as you can onto a page in a certain amount of time and then moving on, because the other 3 phases take much, much more time than the ideas bit. Even though the ideas bit can be really, really fun, you need to move on from that, because the ideas, unless they're actually turned into action, don't really mean a whole lot. The design time takes a lot of time, so definitely invest in that, and so does the action time evaluation, a little bit less. The resources, I think, are also quite clear that, you know, action, it takes a lot of resources to actually put a project into action. It might take a lot of time to design, because you might want to do things like human-centered design or prototyping, and that could take some time and money as well. Yes, you can certainly get a copy of this presentation. Sure. Okay. Right, so problems. How do you even start? Where do you start in terms of finding a problem or getting a problem? You might already have a problem that you know of, but how do you know where to attack that problem? And one of the things that we like to use at CSL is called a problem map. And basically it involves you being like the best 2-year-old that you can ever imagine, and you ask the question why until you run out of answers for that. So just give you an example of a problem map. So, you know, I don't have any time to think at work. Like, all I'm doing is bum up, head down, just working away. And you sort of unpack why, you know, why don't I have that time? And you think, yeah, I've got too many distractions. I waste time. I spend way too much time on Facebook. I lose time because I wander into the kitchen and make tea and chat for ages. I'm doing a lot of things twice because people interrupt me in the middle of my thought process. I'm doing it again. I'm under a lot of pressure. So I just have to get results rather than actually think. And I've got way, way too much to do. And how do those things interact or work together? What affects what? And so then you go to the next layer. So why are all of these things happening? So I'm under a lot of pressure because, you know, I don't really like what I'm doing. I'm in the wrong job. I do lots of things twice because I don't really plan very well. I lose a whole lot of time because I don't make the most of little delays. So potential setbacks in a program or pauses that you have to take, you don't actually, you haven't planned well enough to find other tasks to do in that time because you don't know how to do that. You waste a lot of time because you've got poor time management. Just keep asking yourself why until you've run out of things. So I've got too many distractions because I'm one of those people that just say yes to everything. So I just take on way too much of other people's work rather than doing my own thing because I can't say no, because I lack confidence, because I want to be liked. And try and link those as much as possible, put as many arrows in as possible, and just keep asking yourself why until you've gotten to the end of the why questions. And then what you do is you look for patterns in that. So some of the patterns that you might, sorry, still doing arrows, some of the patterns that you might find are these 4 types of patterns. So one is a chain reaction. One thing causes the next thing, causes the next thing, causes the next thing. And for a chain reaction, in a way to kind of solve that problem is you target the earliest available cause. For a looped reaction, so this thing causes, so I have no time, so I don't think, so then I have no time and I don't think. You target the weakest link. If you can't find a weakest link, start anywhere. A ripple, so if you've got a ripple effect, you start at the root cause, you start at the central thing. And if you've got a cat's claw, which is a problem that has many causes, then you just pull out as many as you possibly can. Ooh, sorry. You pull out as many of those claws as you possibly can. So if we go back to this particular thing that we just unpacked, some of the things that, if you just take a moment to look at, where are the things that have many arrows kind of coming off them? What is the thing that if you took that one thing away, it could affect a lot of things? And if you just have a look at, you know, I don't have time to think. There are many reasons why you don't have time to think, but which are the things that if you targeted and took those away, you could affect, you could really make a big effect on what you're doing. So one of the things that has, you know, really affects loads of things is, I don't know what I want. If you look at that, it's got multiple arrows coming from it. And if you just take out or figure out what it is that you want, it takes out all of those other things as well. So that's one of the sources of your problems. So I lack confidence, that's another one. It also connects to a multiple of particular ways that contributes to your I don't have time to think. So then you have a think about, okay, I don't know what I want and I lack confidence. These seem to be 2 of the root causes of the reasons why I don't have time to think. How could you possibly attack both of those? And then I guess that leads you on to the ideation phase. What are some ideas about how I could figure out what I want, or how to build my own confidence? So this is called problem mapping. Problem mapping is something that I find particularly useful, and I use it quite regularly. And really all you have to do is ask yourself why as many times as you possibly can until you've run out of answers. Problem mapping is something that just takes a bit of practice. So I really encourage you to just kind of just give it a bash, and it's amazing how things link to other things that you don't really necessarily think of when you have it all in your head rather than just on a piece of paper. Okay. Right, so sorry, I've lost the poll somehow. Sorry guys, let me just quickly get to where I was. Just wanted to ask you if you had any questions up to this point about problem mapping or kind of any of the IDEA model. Just wanted to give you a moment. Okay, I haven't got anything through just yet, so I might just move on. The first thing that, the first step of that model is the I. One of the things that is not my skill set is technology, so I almost always have a tech failure somewhere in, here we go, right. So the first phase, ideation. So how do you generate ideas? Sorry, when do you use the problem map again, was the question, is right at the beginning. So some of the things that you might ask are, The problem is the numbers for our programs are dropping and we don't know why. Or the problem is we have way too much plastic waste in our local area. Why is that? So it helps you identify how you can attack that problem and where's the best place to attack that problem. What is the thing that's contributing the most to that problem? Okay, right, yes, to figure out what your project actually is. So yeah, exactly, where to target. So once you've got your problem, you need to start thinking about some ideas or ways that you can attack that problem. How could you, what are some projects that you could do or things that you could start doing to attack those root causes of your problem? So your ideation bit, one of the most common ways of throwing up ideas is brainstorming. So just about everybody, I think, knows how to do a brainstorm. And I do like them, but they've got some really, really key things that you need to be aware of. So I just wanted to give you some tips for brainstorming that I find really useful, because otherwise brainstorming can become a colossal waste of time. So the first thing that I would recommend is, if you're having a brainstorm, have somebody who's a moderator. So make sure this person is able to kind of give the group some structure, also help with things like not being judgmental, keeping them moving along, always set a time frame for your brainstorming. So that person needs to keep an eye on time as well and keep you moving so that you're not getting carried away or stuck. Write down everything. So it might be really helpful to have somebody who's just a scribe and they're not actually participating in the brainstorm. So make sure that you capture everything. Don't rely on yourself to remember all the little things that happened, and you don't know yet what's going to be important. So it is really helpful to capture as many things as you can. Don't judge. I think this is one of the things that everybody knows about brainstorming, but it's quite hard to do. And this is the bit where like evaluators chip in and go, oh no, that would be too hard, that would be too time consuming, that wouldn't work. And this is not the place or time to actually do that. That's a little bit later down the line, so don't judge. It's really important for brainstorming to embrace the ridiculous. So absolutely stretch your brain and get out of the bit that you actually, the conventional ideas, the ideas that you just hear rehashed over and over again, and get to the ridiculous. So what I normally find in brainstorming is people start with the conventional, they get to something a bit useful and a bit out there and a bit interesting and risky, and then they start to get to the ridiculous. So as the moderator or the facilitator, you need to watch out for when it starts to tip from interesting and a little bit edgy to, yeah, completely ridiculous. Avoid groupthink. So this, I think, is probably the most critical thing in terms of brainstorming. Some of the research has shown in terms of NRMI scans is that when you have somebody in the room who's particularly loud or outgoing or has some kind of hierarchical, they're the boss or the manager or something like that, the group can tend to try and build, I'm not going to use the word consensus, but agree with that person just for kind of social norming, and that's not constructive at all. And actually some of the NRMI research, the fMRI scans have shown some quite scary stuff around groupthink. One of the research projects is looking at do people's brains exhibit changes in the area of just wanting to kind of be part of the group, or do they actually have their minds changed by group thinking? Does your brain look at things differently, or does it just try and just fit in with the group and cause peace? So what they did was they brought in a bunch of people, and they had a plant, somebody who was really, really outgoing and outspoken, but he was an actor, and they put up a multiple choice question, and that person was very loud and frank about the fact that this particular answer was right, and that answer was absolutely not right. It was very obvious that it was not right. And about 40% of the time, the whole group agreed with that person. And when they looked at the brain scans, those people were exhibiting changes in the brain area, not in the social kind of skills area, but instead in the spatial awareness area, which was basically indicating, or what they hypothesized it was indicating, was that people's brains were changing, and the way that they were thinking was changing based on group consensus. So you absolutely don't want to have group consensus in terms of a brainstorm. And I think one of the most effective ways to do that is to not brainstorm out loud, at least in the beginning. So give at least maybe 5 or 10 minutes where you come up with all of these ideas. Yeah, so thank you. Thanks to the people who've put up some stuff about brainstorming solo. I agree with you. You need to spend about 5 or 10 minutes doing it by yourself and coming up with ideas and then sharing it. Because if you're just sharing it out loud, it does not work at all. And then I think something that's a little bit radical is about including an outsider. So maybe somebody who doesn't know your project or doesn't know the context, and maybe comes from a totally different department, get them in, because they often can see things in a totally different way to the way that you see it. So apart from brainstorming, what other ideas do you guys have, and how do you come up with your best ideas? When riding my bike, yeah, think on it for a while, yeah, let it percolate, go for a long drive, steal someone else's. I have to say there's nothing wrong with repurposing ideas. Come up with my best ideas by talking to others, Google, talk to friends, yeah, brainstorming, beautiful. I wanted to give you another coaching strategies. Any ideas are valid, talk to my colleagues. Sleeping, best ideas come at night, yeah, inspiration cards, through context first and let it percolate, having a shower, going for a walk, yeah. Definitely seeing a lot of stuff here around going for a shower, going for a walk, sleeping on it. Your brain is an amazing thing, as I'm sure you know, so often if you kind of present this idea to it and let it kind of percolate in the background, all of a sudden the idea will come to you, which is great if you're doing it by yourself for generating a particular idea. But when we're looking at, I guess, collaboration, how do you do it together? It's very much a team effort. And if it's going to be a team effort and you are going to brainstorm, I really, really encourage that solo individual brainstorm first and then group share. And the reason that group share is still important is that you do build on each other's ideas, and you come up with ideas that you might not necessarily have thought of before. You can combine things that you might not have thought of before. Different perspectives help you bounce things off each other. So there is real value in doing it as a group, but not coming up with the initial kind of thought processes as a group. Rather do that by yourself. Okay. One of the things I wanted to show you that we use quite a lot is called a Zwicky box, and it really helps to kind of get unusual ideas out there. So what we just do is we draw up a whole lot of columns: the why, the how, the what, the when, where, as many of those questions as we can think of. And this is an example of somebody who is trying to develop travel guides. So why would they want to develop travel guides? Who would be their target market? What kind of information would be in there? What would it look like? You know, what form would it take? Where would they be sold? And when would they be sold? And the idea with this one is to also just write down all sorts of things that could be really kind of outlandish and crazy, and look for ways in which combinations can be made that are quite unusual, that you wouldn't necessarily think of before. And even just you know, just these few options in this particular box gives you hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of different ways that things could be combined and organized, and it's quite a good, I find it quite a good way to think quite differently about things and come up with different options. And this is also quite a good group activity because people can just kind of throw out ideas, and it's quite easy to do together. And then you can just combine the different things that you might want to do. So potentially you might want to do a fantasy travel guide for students who are want to do a Harry Potter fiction tour, and you might do it as an app, and it might be sold on the the Apple Store and it's a 24/7. Or you might want to do a study tour for parents whose kids are about to go to university, and it could be a book form that's available at the front desk of a university. So you just combine them in lots and lots of different ways, and that comes up with many, many different options for ideas. Okay. The next, we'll move swiftly along, and I guess the next part of this process is the D, the design phase, which is definitely one of my favorites. And one of the bits that are, sorry, I'm just trying to have a quick look at the questions just to make sure I'm not missing anything. One of the great things about design is I think it's become quite a popular topic lately, and there are lots and lots of books and methodologies and things that you can use out there in terms of design to get some parameters around your ideas. And at the moment, one of my favorite ones is human-centered design. And if you haven't heard about human-centered design, I think you're going to hear about it more and more as we go along. It's not a brand new idea by any stretch of the imagination, but I guess it's basically been becoming more and more used in different realms. So it used to be used a lot in IT and kind of website experience stuff, and now it's being used all over the place. And it basically starts with the premise of, it sounds really basic when you think of it, but very few projects actually start like this. So instead of a project group coming together and thinking up what the problems are and thinking up ideas to run a project or a program, instead of doing that, what you would do is you'd go to the participants of the program, or you go to the people that would be affected by that project as a starting point and go, well, what are the problems that you face? Where do you see the gaps? What kind of experience have you got around this particular problem? And how do you think that this could be solved? And you come up with rapid prototypes. There's lots of Play-Doh and plasticine and modeling involved, which I love, and coloring pens and all kinds of stuff. But you basically rapid prototype a particular solution and you present that to them. And the whole idea is based on empathy. So going back to that emotional intelligence piece again, you really, really deeply understand the group of people that are going to be benefited or affected by a particular project or program, and you understand their needs and you start from there rather than kind of just putting on your lens over the particular problem right from the beginning. So that's human-centered design. I'd love to share some links with you afterwards. I'll send them to Erica because there's loads and loads of resources on human-centered design. And as I said, I think it's going to become a bigger and bigger field. Yes, we're getting a big yes there from somebody. Yes, I'll definitely send you some links. So one of the biggest firms that works on it is called IDEO, so IDEO. And they've got loads of resources that are all in Creative Commons, and you can use kind of all of their stuff on your own projects. But yes, I'll send you links. There's lots of great stuff there. Yes, exactly. Needs-based analysis of your target audience in a different way of saying it. Great, thank you. But what I wanted to just quickly remind you of is this really, really, really simple tool. If human-centered design is kind of the high-tech, longer, more involved, deep version of designing, one of the things that I always start off with when we're getting participants to kind of brainstorm project options is once they've gone through this whole big ideas explosion and they've got 20 ideas on a wall, the very, very first thing I get them to do is value versus effort. And it's such a simple tool, but I think people forget it quite regularly. And just doing that can help you really narrow down what it is that you should be doing. And really, I'm sure you've all seen it, but I just wanted to remind you that all you need to do is figure out, if you do this particular project, how high is the cost or the effort going to be, and how high is the value going to be? And what an ideal project, you're looking for a really, really high value and low cost. You definitely don't want to have projects that are high cost and low value. Those are absolute no-nos. The low value, low cost, maybe have a think about how much particular time or effort that's going to take you. If it's something you can knock over quickly and, you know, can help a particular problem, go for it. High value, high cost. Yeah, it's one of those things that you really just need to have a think about and think about whether you can actually do it. But it really helps you kind of eliminate and narrow down what projects that you want to do. And I highly recommend starting there first before going to the kind of the more complex things, especially if you've got loads and loads of ideas that you've got up on the wall. Great. Right, so now we move on to the evaluation piece. I'm not going to go into depth with this because I know Lorraine talked to you a lot about evaluation, but I just wanted to give you one tool that we use quite regularly to get some ideas on evaluation, and that's the PESTLE tool. Oh, the Killjoy, shame. I think they're underrated, Adriana. Everybody needs an evaluator. I think I do most of all, because otherwise I'm just like, yes, we can do this, gung-ho. But we actually do need some people who have got some realistic ideas. Yeah, no, I know I did, but I feel like that they're unfairly labeled often as killjoys. But they are really, really necessary in the process and really, really valuable. And especially because I absolutely don't have this skill. I'm in awe of people whose brains think like that. So PESTLE is one of the tools that we, yes, just not too early, thanks Jules, is one of the tools that we use. So make sure that you kind of already got some ideas on the wall, you've already got some design solutions, and you don't want to do, we call this this particular thing, premature evaluation. You don't want to do that. So that's basically going from idea to evaluation, without actually putting some design parameters on it. You need to have that bit where you scope out your particular idea, put some flesh on the bones. Otherwise, you're kind of going from this like ethereal, can't grasp it thing to like hard and fast without any kind of structural framework. So make sure you don't evaluate too soon. And then when you do get to the evaluation piece, it is really important. But one of the tools I'm going to use is just called PESTLE. And it's just a lens that you can use to kind of make sure that you've considered a number of different options. So the first bit is political. So are there any, this particular project, are there any authority figures inside or outside your organization that might react positively or bad or negatively or to this particular idea? Are there any political factors at play here? Do you have any opponents in high places? Will it make your boss look bad? So this is a particular test I use all the time, which is the front page of the newspaper test. So if this particular project was on the front page of the newspaper, how would your boss or manager or organization react? Environmental, so will the project have any kind of big environmental footprint? Will it use a lot of power? Will it affect any wildlife or nature? So putting that lens on, putting that hat on for a moment. Social, what are the equality implications? Have you even considered that in terms of your project? Are there any things where your idea might privilege certain groups over others? What kind of media coverage could this generate? Will it foster cooperation and trust? Could lead to conflict in the community or office division? So those are all kind of social lenses that you use. Technical, will it require a lot of technology to work? Is that realistic in terms of where you are and your internet connection and things like that? What happens if it doesn't work? So, you know, if your whole project relies on Skype, what happens if Skype crashes out that particular day, or your computer crashes and that doesn't work? So, what are your, how are you going to be able to mitigate that particular thing? Legal, what are the things that could go wrong that could lead to us getting potentially sued? What legislation covers this area, and do we have a budget for any kind of legal fees or things that could go wrong? And then finally, economic. Actually, in the original form of this particular evaluation tool, economic is the second one, but I think that it always gets way too much airplay, so I like to put it at the bottom, but that's just my own personal preference. But economic, how secure is your funding? What are the chances of financial mismanagement? What happens if you blow the budget? Things like that. So just kind of, it's just a good tool to go through to remember all sorts of different aspects that you might need to consider in terms of evaluating your project. Okay, and then finally, action. So by the time it gets to this piece, the people that are just super action orientated are chomping at the bit, and they just want to get involved, and they just want to get, get stuck in. And I don't have too much to say on this particular thing, except that conflict can still happen at this phase. And I just want, this is the part where your team has to actually work together and pull together. It's not just about creating ideas and plans, this is actually implementing it on the ground. So be careful about teamwork here and conflict management. There is a lot of potential for it to happen in the action phase as well, particularly people who just want to get stuck in and do it, as opposed to people who maybe like to watch and see how things are actually unfolding. Those people tend to have a lot of conflict as well, and the people who want to watch can feel a bit like their voice isn't being heard. So yeah, I'd just love to get you to really think about team cohesion and team dynamics here in terms of action. And then I guess, as I said to you earlier, this looks like it's a linear process, but it really isn't. And you might get to, just wanted to remind you that you might get to the evaluation phase and you might have to go straight back to the drawing board. Or you might actually roll out half of your project in terms of actioning, and you realize actually it's not having the effect that you want it to have, and it's just not meeting your goal. So you might have to keep going back to your design board or your ideas board a number of times, and that's completely normal and okay. So that is the IDEA model. Does anyone have any particular questions on that before I I want to introduce you to our online learning platform, and all of this information is on that platform, but I just wanted to give you a little bit of an idea of what it looks like. Yeah, the value cost model. Yes, I think that it is okay. Happy faces. So I would have a look at what your time frame is. If you can take a long-term thing, and the first year it is going to be sad face, but going forward you might move to neutral face and smiley face, and then it's going to be really smiley face in 5 years, and you can build a case for that, then yes, it's okay. It's not ideal, and often people who are in decision-making positions don't necessarily love those kind of projects. But if you can really see that in 5 years' time or in 2 years' time, whatever, the benefit of sticking with that project is going to be huge, and you can really back yourself and justify that, then yes, it is okay. If you've got just a short amount of time to deliver a project, I guess the happy faces are really the low-hanging fruit of the value versus effort model. Sure. Okay. So I'm going to just show you our online platform, which is called Leadership Rewired. I will actually just go onto the actual website itself. If I can escape out of here. Sorry, Erica. Yeah, so if you have a look, no, where is it? So CSL has an online learning platform, as I said, and it's called Leadership Rewired. And the reason I'm telling you this is in around March, each of the environmental education centres have the option of getting one of the licenses for it. That's how it's going to work, isn't it, Erica?
What we'll be doing is each one of the networks, one person from each network can have a subscription to do Leadership Rewired. So, and if there's more than one person, then from each network, well, then the networks can figure out who should have that opportunity. Maybe people just put an application in. Yes. Great.
So can you still see my screen, or is it just on the?
No, it's just on black at the moment.
Okay. All right, so for some reason it keeps pausing every time I go to the website, but I'll just give you a quick idea from, it looks like this. So this is just a screenshot from it. It basically has all of the things that I told you and kind of unpacked with you today in much more detail. It also looks at project planning and things like how to build a good team, some more ideas on ideating and actually kind of seeing your project all the way through to the end. And I just wanted to just let you know that that's there, and that all of these things I've talked about are there, and in more detail with case studies and things like that. So when it comes to March, and there is this opportunity for the networks to sign up for a particular license, and then multiple people in that network could potentially use it. It's a really useful toolbox to kind of have, because you don't have to remember or learn everything off by heart, but it's there for you to dig into at different times when you might need what was that evaluation tool, or what was that ideation tool, whatever the case may be, and you can just go back and look at that one particular thing. It is kind of set in modules, so you can follow the whole program from start to finish, but it is also really useful that you can just jump in and jump out, and it makes perfect sense like that as well. Great, thanks, Jules. I know Jules already has had a good play in Leadership Rewired, so thanks for, it's awesome and an in-depth resource, like a Pandora's box of learning. Thank you very much for that description. But yeah, I definitely recommend it if you want to have this as a resource as you go forward with your projects. Okay, and so we've got about 15 minutes left for any kind of questions that you may have as well. I guess just from me, just a couple of takeaway things that I'd really love you to remember. So leading collaboratively is about choosing the right person or right team to lead at any particular point in the project, but they're not the overall leader. The group still holds the project as a whole. They're just kind of driving a particular point in the project. You could divide it in terms of IDEA, which I've just demonstrated or talked you through today. You could also divide it in terms of functions, which I spoke about a little bit earlier. So you might want, the marketing team to run the marketing bit, or the the evaluation team to do the evaluation bit. You might already have those resources, but for those of you who don't, IDEA, if you can work out who is good at what on your team and kind of give them things that really align to either what they're good at or what we call their learning edge. So if somebody wants to learn to be an evaluator, like somebody said earlier, can you learn those skills? So someone wants to learn evaluation or learn how to be a better designer, you could give them that as an opportunity to learn. And I would highly recommend, we call it co-piloting, so pairing them up with somebody who is already excellent at that particular thing or is interested in it, so that they can learn with each other about a particular aspect of it. So that's leading collaboratively. And then being really clear about the sequence that you are using. It's not great to just jumble all the people into one room and hope that a project will magic itself out of it. Being really clear about that sequence. This process could take a couple of hours, or it could take many weeks, and it just depends on how you organize yourself and how much time you have. So you could run through this process for a small project in an hour or two. And what I would suggest that you do is set a really clear agenda. So make sure that everybody knows that for the first 15 minutes we're ideating, for the next 45 minutes we're designing, for the next 20 minutes we're evaluating, and then we're coming up with an action plan. That really helps manage people's expectations right from the beginning. So somebody who is an evaluator knows that the ideation phase is going to come to an end at some point, and you're not just going to keep going on and on and on in this particular way. And somebody who's an action person is well aware of the fact that you are going to get to action. This is not just going to all be about talking. And it really helps manage everybody's expectations and helps them understand where they're going and what the actual plan is. This could also last many weeks. So most of our programs, actually, this process lasts about 2 months, and they really dive deep into the ideation phase for a week or two, and design takes a month, and then evaluation is another week or two. So it could really take as long or as short as you want it to be. I just think make sure that you are very clear about it at the beginning, how much time you actually have, and divide that time up accordingly, so that you actually have a plan for where you're going. Just some of the key issues that happen following this model. Ideation, I think, is one of the trickiest things. Projects that get stuck in ideation often get bigger than Ben-Hur, and you just keep wanting to make it bigger and bigger and better and better. And one thing I'd love to say to you is don't let the perfect be the enemy of the good. Projects are never perfect or very rarely perfect. So don't feel like you have to get it perfect before you get it out there. Yeah, make sure that if you do want to create a project, you do want to create action. So don't wait until you've got the perfect project. One of my favorite sayings is done is better than perfect. So I really encourage you not to just get stuck there and strive for the most amazing, most perfect project that ever existed in the world. And then follow the sequences as much as you can. In general, so Erica's just said that in general, is there a percentage of time to give to each of these phases? So there's that pie chart, but I would just, in terms of numbers, I would say ideation somewhere between 10 and 15%. I would definitely do a design phase of around 40%, evaluation of about 20%, and then the rest of the time for action. So that's another around 35% or so. Ideation can be the biggest trap for people, because people like throwing. It's fun. It's a nice phase where you can just throw around ideas and not. It feels very playful. So don't get stuck. Don't get stuck in your ideation. Don't evaluate it to death either. So this is something that we call the consultant's heaven. It's a project that's been absolutely evaluated to death. You've measured it, you've stretched it, you've looked at it from every single angle. Don't get stuck there. Like, once you've had a good go at it and you feel like you're fairly confident at it, give it a go. Don't get stuck in any of these particular things. We also have one that we call the white elephant, which is when you end up with a project that's way, way, way too complicated for the time frame, and you have to spend pretty much all your time scaling it back. Quite a few of our projects get stuck in this, at least at the beginning. People in this space are often like super passionate. You want to change the world. You want to make a big impact, and that's amazing and wonderful. And I love you all for it. I'm certainly one of those people as well. But you very quickly realize that actually you've also got multiple jobs, and you have to make dinner or do sport or do all of these other things that happen, and people aren't realistic about their time. So passion does not equal time necessarily. You can be really passionate about a thing, but you don't actually have the time to do it. So be really realistic about how much time you actually have to contribute towards a project. And if you do design a project that's bigger than Ben-Hur, don't be afraid to scale it back to something that is actually realistic within the timeframes. I think one of the most disempowering things is when you come up with this amazing plan and then you realize you absolutely are not going to pull it off, and the sense of failure and kind of disheartenment afterwards is just, it's not worth it. So I'd really like to encourage you to be realistic about what you actually can do within the timeframes and resources that you have, and get a project off the ground that you can actually do. It's better than just having a project that's sitting in ideation phase forever. Okay, does anyone else have any of the questions that you have? Got just over 5 minutes, I think, but I'm happy to stay on for a little bit longer if anyone has some more. Can you discuss the second question we asked? So people in a team, what do people ask you to do? Can you maybe, oh, sorry. Sorry, I thought that was, what, I'm not quite sure what you mean, Erica, actually. Oh, the question that I asked? Yeah.
Yes, I just was looking over those 3 questions that we got to think about. The first one was, in a team, what kind of role or task do you like doing? And then there was the second question, what do people ask you to do? So I was curious about that second question.
Sure. So the reason I asked you that was to help you formulate which one of those 4 things you are. So I was hoping that you would use it as part of your answer to which one they are. And the reason that I think both of those questions are really valuable is often there's something that you really like doing. So as I said, I really like the design aspect of things, but the thing that people ask you to do is often a really good clue as to what they think you're good at. So if you're always the person that they come to for costings or whatever, but you prefer the ideation phase, it just gives you a clue that you're actually also really good at another thing, as opposed to just the thing that you think that you're good at. So I always get asked to problem solve things, and it does fit into the design bit, but it also fits really well into the action piece. People always come to me if they've got a problem and they need to solve it really, really, really quickly, and it just gives you a clue as to what it is that people think you're good at. They usually ask you to make the coffee. You obviously make excellent coffee. That sort of reminds me a little bit of something that we also touched on in the first bit, which was leadership is sometimes standing up front and sometimes standing behind. But one of the things that leaders don't do very well, and is sort of important as well, is sometimes leadership is about getting out of the way. So sometimes you're not the best person to be the leader in the room, and maybe, you know, the most helpful thing you could do as a leader at that particular moment is make the coffee, or organize something that makes people feel good, a celebration afterwards. Leadership isn't always about making the strategic decisions. It's about, you know, what is the thing that you can help do right now that would help the team move forward. So yes, you're not the sage on the stage. You are the guiding hand, moving things forward, keeping people motivated and inspired, and making sure that they have all the resources that they need as well. I think really is it the person up front kind of waving the flag. I think that's a very traditional form of leadership, and not one that is needed every single day. You're sure we definitely need people up there being the person who is taking the bullet, or the person who's showing the way and leading it. But I think on a day-to-day level, it's really about making sure that people have the things that they need and feel like they're supported and know what they're doing and can move forward in whatever project it is that they're doing. And that you're contributing to that. And sometimes that is making coffee for the team. It looks like different things in different times. So yes, situational leadership, very much like that. Thank you. Have you come across the terms planning peaks and delivery peaks in the context of work plans? I've been asked to show these, but I'm not entirely sure what that looks like, and I don't have examples to refer to. I haven't exactly come across this exact language, but I wonder if it has something to do with, certainly the delivery peaks reminds me of when you plan out things in Gantt charts. So when are kind of the critical times where things will be needing to be delivered and things will be depending on other things to actually move them forward. I'm not entirely sure if that is what it is, but it does remind me of that. Okay, anything else? As I said, I'm really happy to, if you've got a question that might take a little bit more time, happy to kind of unpack that. I think probably the thing that I've spent most time in terms of this process is actually troubleshooting and problem solving when areas go wrong. I've seen lots of projects go from woe to go in terms of the Centre for Sustainability Leadership. So if anybody is in a project that they're kind of have a problem and they can't figure out how to get out of that, more than happy to get some questions on that kind of going forward. Yeah, 100%. Best way to see IDEA in action is doing it and applying it. Now that I've used it, thanks Jules, it makes so much more sense as guide rails for the future. Yeah, so like a lot of things, best to just give it a try, and it doesn't need to look like a massive project. It can be something that's quite small, and that you can kind of knock over in an hour or two. So I highly encourage you to use it and just see how it actually works. Great. Great, thanks Angus. Thank you very much, and yeah, all the best for your projects.
Thanks, Liam.
Okay, thanks everybody.
Great, so while everyone leaves, I will send you an email with those 2017 timeframes for you guys to all keep in mind. So thanks again for coming. Yes, happy holidays. Hope everyone has a lovely Christmas and a very nice summer holiday.
Yeah, great, thanks. That we're saying Merry Christmas. I know it's only in like 3 weeks, but it's gone so quickly. Hope you all have a wonderful, wonderful break.
Thanks, Leon. Thanks, Chantel. Thanks, Jackie. Great.
I'm glad we solved that mystery.
Oh, Denise. Great. Thanks, Denise. Laura, would you like to stop recording now? I think we don't seem to be getting any more questions from anyone. Yep. Thanks, Alina.